Hi, second grade, Miss S with your second grade read aloud today. So excited because this is actually one of our last few days with this text, Bone Button Borscht. So if you haven't been able to read this text with us the last few days, make sure you're watching the video above, the read aloud above, so that you get all caught up with what happened in this text. And then this video will be jumping right into our skill of the day, which is determining the lesson learned in a text. So remember, friends, the lesson learned in the text is what the author wants you to learn. Whoops, upside down. What the author wants you to learn by the end of the text. So the author will give you little clues here and there throughout the text, trying to get you to figure out what the lesson learned is. Usually this lesson is learned by the main character themselves, and as the reader, as you guys are reading the text, you yourselves are learning this lesson yourself. And this is something that the author has planned out throughout the whole book. So we're going to be looking for those clues following our steps. I'm going to be showing you how to find the lesson learned in this text that we've been reading, and then it'll be your turn to log into Google Classroom and find the lesson learned of a different Raz Kids book called The Empty Pot, which is a really great text. I know you guys are going to love it. But let me show you first how I follow my steps. So our question that we're going to be answering today is, what is the lesson learned? What is the lesson learned? So watch me as I follow my steps. Step 1, what is the problem? So looking back at our text in Bone Button Borscht, we know the problem in this text, just to remind us, is that we have our beggar. He is going throughout this town. He is cold. He is hungry. But every door he goes to, every door he knocks on, every person he tries to talk to, they refuse to answer the door or they tell him to go away. They are not welcoming to him. So he is unable to find a place to stay and become warm, and he's unable to find any food to eat. So no one is willing to let him in or feed him. So that's our problem in our text. Going into step 2, how is the problem solved? So friends, we know in this text, the problem is solved. The beggar does something really tricky, and he tries to convince all the townsfolk that he can make this magical bone button borscht. And in doing so, friends, he's able to convince him that this borscht is magical and that they all need to add different things to the borscht to make it delicious and make it a big feast for everyone to share. So he's able to solve this problem by convincing them that he can make this magical borscht, and in doing so, he's not only able to feed himself, but he's able to feed all the townsfolk as well. Step 3, what does the main character learn? So what I noticed, not only what does the beggar learn, but all the other characters learn, the lesson that the beggar kind of leaves for everyone, is that the townsfolk learn that they should be helping each other even in hard times. And the reason I knew that, friends, is because I flipped to the back of my text, one of the last few pages. That's usually a good place to look for when you're trying to figure out the lesson learned, the last pages. So looking at this last page right here, I'm going to read a portion of it to you and tell you how I figured out the lesson learned. So it says here that the beggar had left, and the townsfolk learned that they didn't need the buttons. They learned to make borscht without them. And they learned to help one another without borscht, even in hard times. That was the real magic the beggar left behind. So what the author is trying to tell us, that the townspeople learned from the beggar that they actually didn't need these magical buttons. They didn't need these magical buttons to make borscht or anything special like that. They just needed to be willing to help one another in hard times, especially in hard times. They shouldn't be closing doors in one another's faces and not talking to one another. Talking to one another. They should be helping each other. So, moving into step 4, what did you learn? What I learned reading this text is that it's important to help one another even in hard times. So I just put that together and thought of a lesson that I could use in my everyday life. All right, Kipsters, I know that was a lot, but I know you're going to do an amazing job answering this question in Google Classroom. So you're going to click the link on Google Classroom and go to the lesson for the empty pot. So you're going to read that story either out loud, or you can click the listen button and have it read to you. That's totally fine. You're going to read that text, and then you're going to be answering the same question in Google Classroom. What is the lesson learned? What is the lesson learned? So here are your options. A, it's very difficult to grow plants in China. B, it's always important to tell the truth. C, if you work hard, it will pay off in the long run. D, always listen to adults. So Kipsters, I'm not going to lie, I'm actually trying to trick you in this question. All of those responses sound like they could be right, but I really want you guys to think based on our steps, looking at the problem, the solution, and what the characters learn. I want you guys to really think, what is the lesson learned in the empty pot? Look carefully at your options before you just pick one. All right, second graders, I'm so looking forward to seeing your responses, and I'll see you guys all tomorrow.